Hazbin Hotel is an incredibly smartly written show that has strong character arcs, tight plots, consistent themes, and timely messaging about broadly relevant topics. I've never made as many videos on a single idea or IP as I've made about this show because I can't stop thinking about how good it is, both in that it has important things to say and in that it says those things well. Medrano's team has some incredibly talented writers who understand how to get a message across. They use every tool at their disposal, and as I repeatedly rewatch this show, I keep noticing uses of foreshadowing, foils, motifs, both visual and auditory, and so many other means of both setting the scene and keeping the story moving. This is old news for most fans, so how about we look at the zeugmas in the script? Zeugmas are not a super common literary device, but they're some of the most playful I've heard of, and that makes them one of my favorite. Zeugmas work like this. A sentence has three parts. The first, which can be understood in two ways depending on what comes next. Then, the list that follows forces the first part to mean both things. When it's done right, the zeugma elevates the text by tying two related ideas together. Let's look at some examples. From Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carried, he carried a strobe light and the responsibility for the lives of his men. He carries, that's the first part, but he can carry different things in different ways. The first thing he carries is a strobe light, either in his hand or in his bag, but the second thing he carries, responsibility, isn't an object and can't be carried that way. Listing two things together that are so different forces carry to mean two slightly different things, but there's an idea that ties the two things together. These are the things he carries as the first lieutenant and platoon leader. As another example, Alanis Morissette's song Head Over Feet includes a zeugma in the line, "He held his breath and the door for me." Again, the list forces the word hold to take on two meanings. He held his breath by not breathing, and this conveys the idea that she made him nervous. He held the door for her by keeping it open physically, which is a very different action, and it conveys something different too. It shows he has manners. Together, these convey his attractive qualities. In review, zeugmas are when two things in a list force a verb that applies to both of them to take on two different meanings that work together to draw attention to the idea that ties the list together. I found two zeugmas in Hazbin Hotel, both a little more fanciful than the two more bog-standard examples I just gave you. The simpler of the two appears in You Didn't Know, sung by Lute, when she says, "What are we even talking about? Some crack or who fucked up already? He blew his shot like the cocks in his mouth. This discussion is senseless and petty." Did you catch it? It's right here. He blew his shot like the cocks in his mouth. Technically, there are two literary devices going on here. Because of the like, it's also a simile, but this video is about zeugmas, so I'm going to focus on that. In this phrase, the verb is blew, and there are two things Lute says he's blown. First, he blew his shot, meaning that he had an opportunity to live a good life, and he didn't. Second, the phrase blows cocks in his mouth refers to a sex position. These ideas are tied together by the fact that he's a sex worker who went to hell. The other zeugma is somewhat controversial. You'll have to tell me what you think because it relies on visual cues to introduce a second meaning. In Stayed Gone, Vox sings, "While he hid in radio, we pivoted to video. Now his medium is getting bloody rare." Radio and video are both media, and if your medium is getting bloody rare, it means that not many people prefer to, in this case, listen to radio over watch television. If this was all we had, like if we were reading a script, there wouldn't be a zeugma. However, this is a smartly written cartoon and we get a visual component. As Vox sings, he pulls a barely cooked deer head out of the oven. One could say it's bloody rare, playing on the fact that medium and rare are both ways of cooking meat. If this was all we had, I might hesitate to call this a zeugma, but remember, there's one more component. The two ideas have to tie together. On one hand, Vox is taunting Alistair, saying that he doesn't have an audience. On the other, he's threatening a character designed after a deer with a dead deer head. The through line is animosity, which works perfectly both within the message of their show and the tone of their relationship. So what do you think? Should this count as a zeugma, or is it some other kind of really impressive wordplay? Let me know in the comments, and if you're still not sure, let me know what your favorite wordplay has been.